and let's teach them a different kind of job.
If we break our chains, we free ourselves. But if we break our roots, we die. Those are the words of Dr. Vivian Timothy. I would like to begin today's show with that because I know that if we understand our past, it's easy for us to fit into the future and, of course, relax with our present. Now, Dr. Vivian is seated right here with me. She is my guest. It's an exceptional package, as you get to find out as we move on. But for now, let's take a break.
I don't think in gender boxes at all. I just get on with it.
A man that would dare to ask the wife, who do you think you are? That is a real man.
Yes. We need to have more women, multitaskers around Nigeria to get Nigeria working.
Definitely. If you're just joining us, the show is The Woman, and I'm Elizabeth Abai. The guests are already mentioned earlier on is Dr. Vivian Timothy. Nice to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I know I should be saying thank you to a lot of people, but most especially the diaspora community for bringing you to Nigeria.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a great honor. Joy. I know you're the PRO of NIDO Germany.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and it's umbrellaed by Europe.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, your program this period was well attended, and I'm glad for it.
Yeah.
But I also know that you're having an exhibition here in Nigeria for the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm having.
Yeah, well, the preparation is going on in my hometown, my village, where my story began. So it's somehow emotional. It's somehow a special one.
Okay. Talking about how your story began, I'm kind of curious. You have won several awards with your paintings. You've done Nigeria proud with your paintings, not just in Germany where you reside, but outside of that, UK, US, and all that. Try to follow up on that. I'd like to know, how did this come up?
I had always known that I am artistically talented, right from the time I was young. But I was not allowed to, because for my parents, it's not a proper profession for a woman. So I really...
You're not allowed?
Yes, because then I think my parents, they meant well too, but they didn't know that we all have this unique talent that was given to us at the point of our incarnation, or God gave us. And I believe strongly they don't also know that in this talent, most of the time lies our power to become success and to control our future. And they kind of missed it. They meant well, so I'm not really annoyed with them. So now I kind of got confused for decades before I later found myself.
Well, maybe sometimes some of those things are structured in that manner, so you get to find out who you really are when you're really, really prepared for it.
Exactly.
Sometimes you take off at that point and you feel like you're starting late, but it's not actually late. That's when destiny wants you to do it.
No, I call myself a light that took decades to shine.
Yeah. All right, a light that took decades to shine. Yeah. That's another creative expression.
Thank you.
All right, I'm kind of curious. There's several of them in the studio.
Yes.
I'll get to talk about your personality, but speak to me. Your artwork is centered a whole lot on the beauty of a woman and Africa and Nigeria as a whole. Any particular reason for that?
I think the women here, where we come from, this part of the world, we've been kind of marginalized. We are not given the power to become economically empowered. We are struggling still through our outdated tradition, outdated culture, and so and I think living in Germany now for like 30 years, I saw that it could be different. Something is wrong here. So my painting is...
What's the difference between woman and...
direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Amen. Shall we be seated, please? Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with pleasure that I welcome all of you to the 5th edition I think you might need to take your microphone now, please.
Talking about the largest TV network in Africa, the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. It is the celebration
Are you aware? It's okay. So, Your Excellencies, I welcome all of you as NBC celebrates 27 years.
It's nice that you're joining us live from the Transcorp Hilton Congress Hall. I mean the Nigerian Television Authority, the largest TV network in Africa. It is the celebration of 27 years of broadcast regulation in Nigeria by the National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC. I am Adebola Brookslyn Sunday.
Former Minister of Information and Communications. Very, very worthy Nigerian. Please join me as I welcome Alhaji Ikra Aliyu Bilbis. Welcome you. Also here with us this morning is a man who is worthy as a Director General. He has spent over 40 years in journalism, which encompasses print and broadcast. He has worked virtually all over the world, from BBC to Radio France, to Radio Netherlands, to FRCN, to print and the private sector. It's therefore my honor to welcome here Ishak Modibo Kao, Director General of the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. As we celebrate 27 years, the pioneer Director General is also here. Every year, he shows up at every NBC event. It's my honor to recognize and welcome Dr. Tom Adaba. He's not the only former Director General that is here with us. I'd like to welcome one of those sweet-voiced broadcasters that this nation ever seen, and is still needed by the camera and the microphone. Former DG Malam Ben Ladibako is here with us. And also here, he's been my boss from NTA Abeokuta, former Director General, Engineer Yomi Balarewa. I'd like to welcome you. Let me also welcome here one of those finest engineers in the broadcasting firmament. Engineer Mana is here with us. I welcome you, sir. Let me welcome the representative of the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Mrs. Priscilla Inwoma MNI, Director of Public Communications and National Orientation. I welcome you. Welcome you. Also here, it's a man I consider a friend, but also an asset to Nigeria, the Director General of the Nigeria Copyright Commission, Mr. John Asen, is also here with us. I welcome you. And also representing the Honorable Minister of Communications, Engineer A.A. Ladan. Engineer, you're welcome. I'd like to welcome Engineer Reverend Nwalune Augustine, Director of Spectrum Administration, representing the EVC of the NCC. I welcome you, sir. And the Secretary General of the National Union of Textile Garment and Tailoring Workers Association of Nigeria, Comrade Issa Remo, is here with us. We welcome you. We will continue to recognize all of you, particularly former directors of the NBC. But let me, at this point, also recognize and welcome our keynote speaker today, Professor Adam Ahmed. He's here with us. Professor, we would like to welcome you. We have a panel of very eminent Nigerians, and we will recognize them as we go. But let me welcome all of you, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is with pleasure that I welcome all of you to the 5th edition of the annual NBC lecture, an event that has continued to put to the front burner issues that shape our collective aspirations as a nation. This year, the focus will be on contemporary challenges that's facing our Nigerian state and the need for constructive broadcasting. Currently, Nigeria is engaged in some major battles that it must win. Number one, our democracy must succeed irrespective of whatever challenges the country is experiencing. 2, we must defeat terrorism, insurgencies, and reduce to the barest minimum incidences of violent conflicts across the nation. And 3, Nigeria must get its economy right. And all of these battles and wars, only constructive broadcasting can help us win. And that is why this year's lecture is really on point and focused on the issue at hand. So, Your Excellencies, to kick off, let me very quickly welcome the Director General of the NBC, Ishak Modibo Kawu, to welcome all of us officially.
The National Broadcasting Commission has, over the past 27 years, successfully carried out its core mandates across the country. It has established 10 zonal offices and 25 states offices. And here is the Director General, Modibo Kawu.
The Honorable Minister of Communication also represented here. The Chairman and members of the Board of the National Broadcasting Commission, our guest lecturer, the Chairman of the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, the DG of FRCN, members of staff of the National Broadcasting Commission, distinguished ladies and gentlemen from all walks of life. On behalf of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, I would like to welcome you all to this Congress Hall of the Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja, that has evolved over the past couple of years as a venue for the celebration of the establishment of the NBC itself, and this year marks our 27th anniversary, as well as being the preferred destination for our annual lecture series. This year's is the 5th. This event is testimony to the vision of the founding fathers of the National Broadcasting Commission, as well as a tribute to the succeeding train of leadership of the Commission. They have all added a rich piece to the intricate tapestry that is the rich mosaic of achievements that the National Broadcasting Commission has recorded in the past 27 years. We thank all the past leaders of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, the Directors General, the numerous directors, the generations of staff, men and women, whose intellect and labor have collectively given the NBC its distinct culture of work and tradition of achievement. If we see farther from the standpoint of today, it is because we are standing on the shoulders of the giants that you all are. We must continue to express our gratitude for the pioneering endeavors that brought us to where we are today. As I've stated at the beginning, this is the 5th annual lecture of the NBC. The first one took place in 2015. Our guest lecturer that year was Mr. Shola Taylor, and the theme of the inaugural lecture was New Media Convergence and the Future of Broadcasting, Greedy Telco, Naive Broadcasters, and the Scramble for Spectrum. For the second annual lecture in 2016, we were able to persuade Professor Atahiru Jega to make his first appearance at a public event after he successfully midwifed the 2015 Nigerian elections. The theme of his lecture was Broadcasting and the Challenge of the New Nigeria. In 2017, which marked the 25th anniversary of NBC, the theme of our gathering that was enriched with the presence of His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, was on cosmopolitanism, Nigeria's ethnic politics, and the communication of hate. Last year, we staged the 4th annual lecture, and it was a pleasure to be able to host the political scientist, scholar, and veteran international diplomat, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, as a lecturer. His lecture was titled, Broadcasting and Nigeria's Ethno-Cultural Divide, Bridging the Gap. For this year's lecture, we would be exploring as theme, Contemporary Challenges of the Nigerian State, Need for Constructive Broadcasting. Our guest lecturer this year is a professor of history at the Nigeria Defense Academy in Kaduna. Until recently, Professor Hamid Adam was the Dean of the School of Postgraduate Studies at the NDA. At the moment, he holds a new position in the institution as Director of the Directorate of Linkages and Collaboration. A man of very passionate historical sense of responsibility to our country, Professor Adam comes very recommended, and we believe that he would speak to the theme of this year's annual lecture in a manner that would deepen our individual and collective understanding of the theme of the lecture. Every year, we painstakingly examine the contemporary currents of socio-political development in our country, as well as their reflection in the programming and news content of Nigerian broadcasters, to determine the theme of our annual lecture series. The background to our thinking in that respect is located in the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. The 6th edition of the Code was released by the NBC in July 2019. In section 021, the character of broadcasting, it describes broadcasting as a creative medium characterized by professionalism, choice, and innovation to serve the public good. Similarly, the Nigeria Broadcasting Code emphatically stated in the same section that broadcasting shall influence society positively, setting the agenda for the social, cultural, economic, political, and technological development of the nation for the public good. The code also enjoins that by the means of broadcasting, every Nigerian is expected to partake in the sharing of ideas and experiences that will enrich the life of the citizenry and help them live in a complex, dynamic, and humane society, as stated in the 1999 Nigerian Constitution. And in the social objectives in section 0221, subsection 2, Nigerian broadcasting is to provide a functional level of enlightenment for the Nigerian populace and is also requested to promote the acquisition or pursuit of knowledge. Section C expects that broadcasting shall promote values and norms which foster the well-being and cooperation of the various segments of the Nigerian society. The political objectives of broadcasting requested that it must contribute to the development of national unity and participatory democracy. Section C says, our broadcasting in Nigeria should promote social justice based on the responsibilities and rights of the individual in the society. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, given the broad backdrop of the position of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, you can now understand the trend in respect of the themes that we explore every year at our annual lecture series. We endeavor to assist the Nigerian broadcasting community as well as the general populace that the industry serves to come to terms with the realities of social existence in our country as we make the effort to address the challenges of underdevelopment and nation building. There has never been a simplistic formula to confront the hydra-headed challenges of development in any society. That is why the broadcaster has an obligation to conduct programming and news as well as commentaries in manners that would aid the efforts to confront the challenges that face Nigeria and the society. We're all aware that the Nigerian state confronts several challenges today. Yet, like millions of our compatriots, we're also aware that the Nigerian state is also making concerted efforts to address these challenges. It is not doom and gloom in our country. This is the context within which our guest lecturer, Professor Hamid Adam, will be speaking to us today. I would like to urge our colleagues in the industry to extract maximum mileage from today's lecture, as well as the accompanying interrogations, in order to deepen our sense of responsibility to our country, as well as enriching the content of our broadcasts. The NBC's endeavor with the annual lecture series flows directly from our overview of the work that you do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. We monitor, collate, and analyze your broadcasts. We sift through the dominant tendencies and then lean on our knowledge of the interface between socio-political development and broadcasting content to determine the theme of our annual lecture series. Similarly, we would like to thank our compatriots who regularly attend our annual lecture series and our other events. The duty of regulating broadcasting becomes ever more challenging as the number of stations being licensed to operate increases by the day. The NBC has to keep up with a growing number of licensees, amongst who are those who believe that they should not be regulated, or who regularly air content that leaves much to be desired from the perspective of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. We have always stressed that the Nigerian has a right to quality broadcasting. Let me assure you that the NBC will continue to serve the very best interests of our dear country, Nigeria. Please enjoy the National Broadcasting Commission's 5th annual lecture. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was the Director General of the NBC, Ishaq Modibo Kawu, that the future is bright and the Commission will continue to execute its mandate in accordance with the act establishing it.
As he was casting the news. Let's put our hands together one more time for the DG of NBC. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. I'd like to also quickly welcome here the Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Dr. Mansur Liman. He's here with us. We welcome you. Thank you very much. Let me welcome the Chairman of Pinnacle Communications, Sir Lucky Omolua, who is also here with us. I welcome you. I welcome you. Let me welcome the former Director General of the NBC, Mr. Bayo Atoebi, who's here with us. We welcome you. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Also here is the Acting Chairman, Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, Godfrey Ohabua. You're welcome. You're welcome. And the representative of the Executive Director of the National Film and Video Censors Board, Mrs. Fatima Abukadri, is also here with us. We welcome you. We welcome you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is said that the world we live in is very crazy. At times crazy, at times beautiful, at times ugly, at times complicated. And it keeps moving on from crisis to strangeness, from beauty to weirdness and to tragedy. The caravan of the world keeps on rolling. It takes only the broadcaster to be able to capture it, track it, and explain it. Our next speaker understands this very carefully. He used to be former Minister of State for Information and Communication. Today, he is the chairman of NBC. Please join us and welcome Alhaji Ikra Aliyu Bilbis.
The Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, my brother Alhaji Lai Mohammed, ably represented by the Director of Public Communication, Madam Priscilla Hua, the Honorable Minister of Communication, represented by a director in the ministry, my colleagues, members of the board, Director General of the NBC, Alhaji Ishaq Modibo Kawu, the Director General of Yabarasian, Dr. Mansur Liman, former Director Generals of the NBC. The guest speaker, Professor Adam Ahmed, and the discussants that are here present, Chairman of Pinnacle, Sir Lucky Olulia, and the acting chairman of Bond, Chief Godfrey, all the staff of NBC, and our respected invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Is it yet afternoon or morning? Let me start by thanking Almighty Allah that make it very possible for us to celebrate once again 27th anniversary of broadcasting in Nigeria. On behalf of the board, the management and the staff of the Broadcasting Commission, I would like to welcome you, our esteemed guests, leaders from all walks of life in Nigeria, professional broadcasters, security experts, students, and all stakeholders who over the past 27 years have contributed to the progress of the Nigerian broadcast ecosystem to this event this morning. As you are all aware, the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, was established on 21st of August 1992, some 27 years ago. Its primary mandate was to initiate and promote private ownership broadcasting in Nigeria after close to 60 years of government sole ownership of the industry. In addition, was the charge of the NBC to develop and regulate the industry at every level. In line with this regulatory function, the NBC since 1993 has, in collaboration with the stakeholders, produced a code for the practice of broadcasting in Nigeria. The document, which is reviewed regularly to match the dynamic nature of the industry, contains ground rules for Nigerian broadcasting, and it also enumerates engineering and safety standards, as well as the penalties for violation in line with the universal best practice. As broadcasters themselves and other industry watchers will testify, the enforcement of the code has substantially sanitized the industry by eliminating arbitrariness in the operation of the electronic media. The 6th edition of this Nigerian Broadcasting Code was recently launched in Kano and made available to the industry. There are a number of initiatives that Commission is focusing on in order to bring broadcasting in Nigeria at par with the rest of the world. One of such is the transition from analog and digital television transmission. From 1980, National Television Authority stations 19 states of the Federation in 1976, and the Federal Radio Nigeria having 6 zonal at zonal level. The landscape had grown to about 700 radio and television channels and satellite platforms. If therefore one wants to aggregate at least 15 staff per station, multiplied by about 700, it will give us the idea of jobs being created over the period, as well as the value chain attached through content providers via music, video, and such other journeys. Similarly, the provision of platform as provided in the democratization of airwaves, and inconclusiveness of the of the public feedback mechanism to the government here by expressing democratic ideas. The core fundamentals of democracy are equally common participation and access to the information for all citizens, as well as gathered today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must again ponder at the power of the broadcast media, which can affect people's thinking and behavior for good or evil. Such a medium with monumental influence on society cannot be unregulated. The title of this lecture, Contemporary Challenges of the Nigerian State, Need for Constructive Broadcasting in Quiet Orbit, considering the fundamental issues that the Nigerian state is facing and the place of the broadcasting media in helping to address them. As you deliberate on this issue today, let us consider the positive of the broadcast media and endeavor to use it for the interest and progress of our dear country. Let us join hands today to move this industry forward. I must not fail to state that in all these years of existence, the NBC has enjoyed complete independence from both the executive and the National Assembly. We have also received support from these arms of government. We are looking forward to the future. Join hands with us to move this industry forward. Happy anniversary to all. May Allah bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman of the NBC. As he steps down, can we appreciate him one more time? Thank you very much. And so, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also very quickly welcome other members of the board of the NBC that are here. I'd like to welcome Barrister S.B. Aluko. He's here with us. We welcome you. Thank you very much. Dr. Yushau Ahmed, Haji Rabi Haruna, Honorable Tijani Marafa, and Honorable Kingsley Agbo. They're all here with us. We welcome you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is said that the great thing about being a broadcaster is that you have this incredible responsibility to the people that makes it happen. And those people are the people that tune in on both radio and television. So we are very grateful to the following broadcast organizations for taking this event live: the FRCN, NTA, and the Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners of ASO FM and ASO TV. So very quickly, we'll take a few minutes, probably 2 minutes apiece, for goodwill messages. Let me welcome here the Director General of FRCN, Dr. Mansour Liman, for his own goodwill message.
The representative of the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, the representative of the Minister of Communications, the chairman and other board members of NBC, the Director General of NBC. I will crave your indulgence to permit me to stand on already established protocol. We are once again here to witness the 5th annual lecture organized by NBC, and the topic of this year's lecture is Contemporary Challenges of the Nigerian State, Need for Constructive Broadcasting. Since the inception of the annual lecture, I've been able to attend at least 4 of the annual lectures, and I must commend NBC for digging deep, in the words of the Director General, to find a topic that is not only relevant, topical, but also, most importantly, something that helps in the development of our nation. I'm sure everyone will agree with me that this year's topic is very relevant, coming at a time when you look at the various platforms that are broadcasting to the nation and what they're actually broadcasting. You begin to wonder what kind or kinds of broadcast are these platforms actually broadcasting. There's a need for our own country, given its developmental challenges, to make sure that we, the broadcasters, actually look at our primary responsibility. Yes, our responsibility is making sure that those in authority are accountable, but it is also our own responsibility to give constructive criticisms for the development of our own nation. And I think that is why this year's topic of the need for constructive broadcasting is very, very relevant. I think Nigeria today is witnessing a lot of challenges, especially our own coexistence. If you look at what is being broadcast or what is in the various or on the various platforms that are broadcasting. Therefore, there is a need for us, even without NBC, to look critically at what we are doing. Are we doing this to unite our nation or not? And I think for the various platforms, there's a lot that needs to be looked into to see whether we are actually doing what we are supposed to do. I'm looking forward to a stimulating lecture by the guest lecturer. And all I can say now is that I commend the NBC for choosing such a subject at this crucial time. And I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very thought-provoking. The Director General of FRCN would thank you. Very quickly, for his own goodwill message, let me welcome here the representative of the EVC of NCC, Engineer Reverend Nwa Augustine.
Good morning to everybody. I am here representing the Executive Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission, Professor Umar Garba Dambata. The Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, ably represented. The Honorable Minister of Communication, ably represented also. The Chairman and Board of the NBC, the Director General of NBC,
I beg to stand on existing protocols. I am highly honored to be invited to this event of today, the 5th annual lecture and the 27th year anniversary of the NBC. As a regulator of the telecommunication industry in Nigeria, I associate myself with the theme of this event, contemporary challenges of the Nigerian state, the need for constructive broadcasting, especially because of the role of ICT in broadcasting. I sincerely believe that we need constructive broadcasting, and not only constructive broadcasting, constructive dialogue to confront the challenges that are facing the Nigerian state. Indeed, if constructive broadcasting is achieved, it will go a long way in solving some, if not all, the challenges facing the Nigerian state. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to thank and congratulate the organizers of this event. The topic is apt. It would not have come at any other better time than now, given the magnitude of challenges that is facing the Nigerian state. I want to thank the organizers and congratulate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and extend our love to the EVC. Let me quickly welcome here, representing the Managing Director of MultiChoice Nigeria, Shumani Gerada. I welcome you. And also here, Chief Executive Officer of Renmore Technologies, Zahid Maza. You're welcome. Hajia Hadiza Agwaram, representing MD Integrated Television Service, ITS. You're also welcome. Dr. Victor Agwarava, Acting Executive Secretary, Nigeria Press Council, is also here with us. We welcome you. And so finally, for the goodwill messages, is a man that heads an organization that is only 3 years older than NBC. He has kicked off a wonderful, wonderful 30-year anniversary of the Nigeria Copyright Commission. He's a lawyer and a brilliant one at that. Please welcome Mr. John Asen, DG NCC.
Good morning, all. The representative of the honorable ministers, I beg to stand on existing protocol. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's been let out that indeed Nigerian Copyright Commission is 3 years older than the NBC. And it's indeed pleasant to note that we are both celebrating our anniversaries. They are celebrating the 27th. We have commenced our 3 months of celebration of our 30th anniversary. But we found, thank you so much, we found indeed that we have a lot of convergences. I was just sharing with the former DG, Engineer Bolarinwa, how we used to have a quartet. Because we know that if we want to reconstruct, if we want to add value, if we want to move this country forward, if we want to make the agencies more efficient, if we want to ensure that we indeed serve the providers of content and the investors in these industries, if we want to sustain the creative sector, and if we want to keep Nigeria at the prime position it is in the Committee of Nations, if we want to redefine who we are in a very positive way and tell our stories the way it is, that indeed we are good people, we are resilient, we are hardworking, and we can always deliver, then there must be this collaboration between the agencies. So in sharing our goodwill, we congratulate NBC. We congratulate you on this 5th lecture. For me, this is the first I will be attending as the DG Nigerian Copyright Commission, having just been appointed this year. But already have seen things that I will take away from here, and I've seen points of collaborations. What I can assure you is that the Nigerian Copyright Commission will work hand in hand with you to ensure that the broadcast sector delivers on its mandate. We will work with you to ensure that NBC delivers on its responsibilities. We will work with you to ensure that those who are investing in this sector have return on investment. We will work with you to ensure that the content providers have safe harbor in the broadcast space. We have discussed even this morning some of the issues that we will go back and we will implement. And we are excited to be with you. We are delighted to be able to work with you. We commend you, and together we can say that Nigeria is indeed able to reconstruct. Nigeria is indeed able to meet the contemporary challenges, which are global. And I think we should begin to tell this narrative in a way that does not make Nigeria look so different. We have the capacity, we have the will to ensure that even in these challenges, we are able to use the various tools of intervention to ensure that we are more responsible in the way we deliver. We know that very often we face the challenge of those who think they should not be regulated. And we've said it over and over from the Nigerian Copyright Commission, and we share your sentiments that we must regulate. There must be standards. And we must hold people accountable for whatever they do. People cannot be reckless and leave the state to begin to clean up the mess over and over. So we stand with you strongly, and I can assure you, as you regulate the airspace, as you ensure that signals are properly utilized and in a responsible manner, we'll stand with you to ensure that the protection, as far as copyright is concerned, is given prime attention. Thank you so much, and again, congratulations.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your own 3-month anniversary that stretches to the end of the year. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also quickly recognize some former directors of the NBC. And I love the way the DG put it. He said it's upon their shoulders that they have been able to stand so they can see very far. Mr. Bright Igbako, former Secretary of the Commission, is here with us. We welcome him. Mark Emakore, former Director of Monitoring and Operations, we welcome you. Mr. Abiodun Ogushote, former Director of Finance, we welcome you. You're welcome, sir. Lak Okpala, former Director Admin, is also here. We welcome you. I take ownership for the next name because he was my director guy in Abeokuta. Mr. Eddie Aino, former Director of Operations, I welcome you. Mark Ogier, former Secretary to the Commission, former Director of Monitoring, former Director of Policy and Research, is a foreman. Joseph Ahutu, former Director of Administration, we welcome you. Patrick Are, former Director of Finance, Anwalu Saliu, former Director of Public Affairs, Femi Ayeni, Director of Investigation and Enforcement, Isaac Ogo, former Director of Benin Zone, Ahmed Abdulkadri, former Director of Maiduguri Zone, and Alhaji Mohammed Nanu, former Director of DG's Office, Mr. Tom Shatter, former Director of Research and former Director of Monitoring, who just stepped in. To all of these amazing people, there's a line in the national anthem that says the sweat and the efforts of our heroes past shall never be in vain. As NBC celebrates 27, you can now see that your sweat and effort is not in vain. One more time, let's put our hands together for all of these amazing former directors. Thank you very much. Let me also welcome in our midst Loretta Onochie, essay to the President on social media. She's here with us. We welcome you. And also here, Dr. Chidia Madueke, MD Nigeria Film Corporation, is also here. We welcome you. So, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly welcome here the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, represented here by Mrs. Priscilla Iwoma, MNI.
The Honorable Minister of Communication, ably represented, Chairman of the Board of the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, and my former minister, Alhaji Ikra, and other directors of the NBC, the DG of the NBC, the guest lecturer, DG of FRCN, and other DGs here present, eminent Nigerians here, especially my senior colleagues in the media, management and staff of the National Broadcasting Commission, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Yes, I'm happy to be here. I'm quite delighted to be here the second time. This is my second time of representing the Honorable Minister of Information at this annual lecture. He is engaged in a state function right now. No, he's very new. Only last week they were sworn in, and many state functions waiting for his attention. So he has asked me to be here, and I'm here to represent him. So I will read his speech to open this ceremony. I'm delighted to be here today as the chief host of this annual event. May I welcome you to the fifth in the series of the NBC annual lecture with the theme, Contemporary Challenges of the Nigerian State, Need for Constructive Broadcasting, to be delivered by a renowned scholar in the person of Professor Ahmed Adam, Dean Postgraduate Studies of the prestigious Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna. You will recall that only last Wednesday, I was sworn in by President Mohamed Buhari as the Minister of Information and Culture. It is our firm belief that the modest achievements recorded during our first outing endorse the confidence of Mr. President, hence the reappointment. Please permit me to reiterate my commitment to the realization of the objectives of this administration in taking the broadcast industry and indeed the information sector to the next level of prosperity. Let me congratulate the NBC for being consistent in hosting this annual lecture. The theme of this year's lecture is apt, considering that Nigeria recently held general elections where the broadcast industry played an important role in shaping the opinions of the electorate in voting candidates of their choices. apart from the traditional role of educating, informing, and entertaining the populace, the broadcast industry in Nigeria has also played a pivotal role in sustaining the tenets of our democracy. Let me reiterate that the President Muhammad Buhari-led administration has great respect for the media and will continue to work with them as partners in progress. In recent times, our information space has been flooded with content that test the unity and peace of the country. These contents circulate within the social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, and many more social media platforms. Some of these contents, which are mostly unverified, find their ways into the mainstream media in forms of hate speech and fake news. I will therefore enjoin the broadcast media to constructively make use of these social media contents with great sense of patriotism for peace and unity in Nigeria. Permit me to state here that in an effort to make the broadcast industry robust, President Muhammad Buhari has approved wide-ranging reforms, including the licensing of online radio and television stations. He has also approved the review of the broadcast code to bring it in line with current realities. It is important to inform you that that review will have the input of all stakeholders in the broadcast industry, and most of you are here. As journalists and broadcasters, we are expected to encourage the populace to partner with the government in finding solutions to the myriad of challenges facing our dear country, Nigeria, from corruption, infrastructural deficit, to criminality. Accordingly, the broadcast industry owes it a duty to Nigerians to use its platform to encourage productivity, patriotism, national unity, and cohesion. I will expect that as an important outcome of this gathering, would be that the contents will showcase the diligence of our people, the diligence of Nigerians in all spheres of life, both here and abroad, and that will further galvanize our dear country to greater heights. It is therefore my pleasure to welcome you again to this annual lecture. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
She delivered with clarity. No wonder she's MNI. Let's put our hands together for her, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the National Security Advisor is here, represented by Ambassador Yusuf Maman. Ambassador, we welcome you. We welcome you. Thank you very much. And also here, let me welcome Ms. Ime Okon, Senior Special Assistant to the President in the Office of the Vice President. We welcome you. Thank you very much. I also like to welcome all the CEOs of broadcast stations that are here and all the directors of FRCN across the country that are in this room right now. I welcome all of you, as I also welcome the Director General of the National Orientation Agency. Doctor, I welcome you as you step in. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is said that there is no invention of modern times that has delivered so much while promising so little, like broadcasting. No wonder broadcasting is being described as the theater of the mind. It's at this point that we'll take our keynote lecture to be delivered by a man who understands the issues as far as linkages are concerned and collaboration. He is actually the Directorate of Linkages and Collaboration, Nigerian Defense Academy. Please join me as I welcome here Professor Adam Ahmed.
Yeah, I'll just get something here. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The distinguished chairman of this very important occasion, the Minister of Information and Culture, represented by our own Mrs. Priscilla MNI. I had actually wanted to meet Alai Balogun, Alai Mohammed, sorry, so that we can crack some joke to sympathize with him. The last time I was watching him speaking was when he said his own grandchild, even asking, why are people calling you Liar Mohammed? You know, I consider him as one of the most responsible, down-to-earth, active minister in the last dispensation and in continuous dispensation. But then that's actually the burden of being a leader in a country of this nature. You want to do your job. Some people felt that you are not doing it in their own interest, and what you have is stigmatization. But fortunately, he's not here, but Mrs. Priscilla is here, MNI. I also want to recognize the chairman of the board of MBC, Alhaji Bilbis, though he's not a newcomer into the field, and his team. I recognize the DG of MBC, our own, Alhaji Modibo Kawu, active, very strong from all the time I've known him, and his team. And I particularly thank them for inviting me for this occasion. I want to recognize every single individual that are player in this field in the past and the present. There are so many former DGs, former directors, and you have a lot of DGs from Allied Environment, Allied Field, and you have from other areas. I've also discovered that some professors are also here because I was coming. I have also seen some of my old friends around, so it's really very, very nice for us to have met here again. But one individual is very important for me to recognize for two reasons. One personal and one professional. This person is my father, is an elder statesman, the man who has contributed so much to the development of this nation, not only in the media, but in other areas. I'm not from core in media, I'm an academics. But then it has enormous impact on me and so many of us in our own generation and the generation that are coming behind. This is personal. But then he's a broadcaster. He's veteran. You can call him an ancient broadcaster, and have had somebody calling him the pioneer DG of MBC. I do not know. Dr. Tom Adaba. I'm extremely delighted to have seen you here again. And interestingly, wherever there is goodness, he goes there. Anything that is good, you see Dr. Tom Adaba, he's there. When I saw him with his sanda coming in, I said, yeah, our elder statement is here again. Sir, we really appreciate for the role you have played in building this nation and the very constructive and productive role you have played on all of us. You know all of us. The impact is very electrifying. Now, the task is very simple because I'm just to deliver the keynote address, and you have participants, you have discussants who will be dissecting it. Unfortunately, I don't have remote control, but I said we have to be communicating because there are a lot of things in the PowerPoints, which is just 50% of what is in the test itself that I've handed over to the organizers. So I will be keeping something and going away. Nigeria is beset with a lot of challenges. And these challenges are multidimensional. These challenges are challenges that, naturally speaking, should have spurred us to develop, to grow, But then because if they are not properly attended to, they could be dysfunctional and negative. Because ordinarily, challenges are good, right? Because if you do not have challenges, how do you grow? You cannot grow. Challenges are there for people to grow. But if you do not have the challenges, you can't grow. But if you leave the challenges without attending to them, it becomes a mirage. It becomes a deluge. It is consuming. It can be very destructive. Now, on that basis, broadcasting is also a very sensitive organ. It's a very sensitive in the life of women. Since 19th century, when it began to evolve, up till now, and you have even seen some leaders saying, I prefer broadcasting to an existing government. Because of why? Broadcasting itself is a government, is a governance. Then, as we shall see, if it is constructive and if it is productive, the country moves ahead. But if it doesn't, then there is a problem. Now, I have a keywords here, what I call keywords: broadcasting, radio, television, insecurity. The three first are very key. There are keywords that are very key to this discussion. Insecurity is also very key because insecurity is number one challenge that is facing this great nation. Guerrilla journalism is the alternative, and some of the speakers here have spoken about some of the untoward behavior of some of those of us in the field. Now you have the guerrilla journalism, the yellow journalism. You people know better than myself. But then, developmental democracy is very key. You do not just do democracy, but democracy has to be developmental, because if it is not developmental, then there is a problem. And broadcasting is a key factor. It's a key stakeholder in what? In developmental democracy. Now, national integration is very key. If you do not have integration, you have problem. And if the broadcasting association, the media practitioner do not support the country, then instead of integration, you have what? Disintegration. Then sustainable growth, that's the peak. That's what every nation wants. You want to have a growth, not just a growth that can withstand shock, material, economic, progress shock, and it can continue. Now, to grow. National unity and peace is the final thing that you require. That there should be a peace, there should be unity, and there should be cohesion within the various groups that has made up this polity called Nigeria. Please go ahead. Now, these are my outline. Don't be scared. We may not have to go through one by one. Some of them that are very familiar, we'll just keep them. I have introduction, I have working definition, history and origin of radio and TV broadcasting, history of broadcasting in Nigeria, ownership and control of broadcasting organizations, challenges of the Nigerian state, broadcasting as a tool of national integration and unity, role of constructive broadcasting, the task ahead of us, and conclusion. Now, the broadcast media have exerted enormous power and influence on the people that has become part of their life. You can imagine, you would not appreciate what broadcasting has done to us, except when you wake up in the morning and you don't hear anything. You tune on to your radio, is blank. You tune on to the TV, is blank. And you are in that set of condition up the tide and you want to sleep, and nothing. I mean, you just think you are hollow, you are empty. Because why? Of the role the broadcast media have on individual in the society. Now, some people prefer to listen to radio or watch television before listening to that and so on. And How do you know what happens in your environment? How do you know even your own immediate environment and the further environment if you do not have the broadcasting? You do not listen, you don't have radio to listen to, and you don't have a television. Now, it is right to say that in democracy, broadcast may play an indispensable role in creating, molding, and reflecting public opinion. And a philosopher, as you see there, has, because of that, referred to broadcasting specifically and the media in general as the fourth estate of reality. In the same way, Thomas Jefferson has also said, were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without broadcast media or broadcast media without a government, I should not hesitate for a moment to prefer the latter. He preferred broadcast because broadcast is government. You know, government cannot exist without the broadcast, and broadcast can exist without the government in a way. You know, we don't have to go deep into the discourse. Now, the same thing, a former Indian Prime Minister, Nehru, who also said, I would rather have a completely free press with all the danger involved in the wrong use of that freedom than a suppressed and regulated press. Well, these are contestable. But all these saying underscore one thing: the very, very, very important and significant fundamental role that media, but in this case, broadcasting media, can play in the existence of human race and in the continued existence of a society. Now, let's quickly look at some terminology that has been used in this paper. The first one, broadcasting, is the distribution of audio or visual content to a dispersed audience via any electronic mass communication media using electromagnetic spectrum or radio waves. In other words, it is the electronic transmission of radio and television signals that are intended for general public reception. A radio or television broadcast is a program that is transmitted over the airwaves for public reception by anyone with a receiver tuned to the right channel. You broadcast from one end and it's taken at the other end. Why? Because the person who's taking it is properly channeled. Let's go on. Radio can be defined as a medium used for sending and receiving messages through air using electronic waves. Go ahead. Now, can you go back a little bit? Okay. Thank you. Now, oh, sorry, you have the old version. Okay, go ahead. Now, state, it refers to a community of people who share common territory, government, and who often share common languages, race, and history. Now, Nigeria can be called a state because, one, it has a distinctive environment. It has its own characteristics of a state, a border, a police, a security. It has and is recognized by international community and international law. State has so many ways of evolving. States could just evolve in its own, historically speaking. Some states are created by force of coercion. Some states are created because the people have common history. They have common origin and they share some common indices like race, like languages. They share culture, ethos, morals, and so on and so forth. Whichever of these cases, it's stated, and in as far as that environment, a geopolitics is recognized, it is a state. Depending, not minding what are those factors that have made them to evolve and develop. So Nigerian is a state. Security is the state of being secure or free from danger and risk. It is a situation where either an individual, social group, geopolitical entity is protected against any form of danger, espionage, attack of any sort, internally or externally. There are a lot of thinking about security, but our concern is national security. And when we mean national security, in this paper, we are talking of Nigerian national security, which I have defined as the ability of Nigeria as a country to protect and develop itself, promote its cherished interests, legitimate values, enhance the standard of living and well-being of its people, guests, and vision. That's security. It's all-encompassing. Individual in the state, like we have identified, Nigeria is secured. Your guests are secured. your eating, your accommodation, your movement on the road are properly secure, and you have value, culture that are recognized and respected in that state, and those are cherished and they are protected from either internal pollution or external pollution. This also extends to your guests, because you have to also protect your guests, because it's part of the system and the characteristics and the feature of a nation state. Now, insurgency is a condition of violent revolt against constituted authority or established level through sabotage and harassment in order to undermine the authority. Now, sometimes insurgency, the extreme extension of insurgency is terrorism. Insurgency, you use force, you coerce people, you let blood off, but then insurgency is territorial. It is territorial. This is one area it does not share, for example, with terrorism. Terrorism is ideological, is civilizational. And as far as they are concerned, they want to rule the world, they have the ideas, they have the views. But insurgency sometimes have a goal, objective. They have leaders you can quickly call the leader and negotiate. But sometimes it's very difficult to have who are the leaders. That's why we could remember one of the presidents of this country in the past said, they are faceless. Boko Haram is a faceless. We don't know who they are. How do we negotiate with people who do not know? You know. But then for insurgency, for example, if you go to MEND and some other group, they have their leader, they are identified, and sometimes they are calling for a rectification of some misdeed, of some abuse in the environment, in the air, or abuse as far as material allocation is concerned. Move ahead, move ahead. Go ahead. Now, let's quickly look at the history and origin of radio is there. You can see it, and like I said, you can access this online. This section tells you how radio and how television evolved, generally, which encompasses broadcasting. Move ahead, please. Now, this still continue. Go ahead. The history of broadcasting in Nigeria. In Nigeria, radio started with the introduction of radio distribution system RDS in 1933 in Lagos by the colonial British Department of P&T. Now, it became more serious in the Second World War when this broadcast, as far as the colonial state is concerned, is linked to the prosecution of the Second World War. If you remember, Second World War was one of the greatest wars that was fought by British and her allies against their enemy, the Allied power. Like historians will tell you, some of the development during the British are development that are linked to exploitation. The colonial state needs to be informed about what is going on in the war. They needed to be recruited and so on. So what do? You look them to the international broadcasting system where they can access, well controlled by the British. And in 1935, the radio distribution system was changed to radio diffusion system in order to propagate British and Allied effort of the Second World War. The Ibadan radio station was commissioned in 1933, followed by the Kano station in 1944. Nigerian NBC was created in 1950 as broadcasts began in Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, Kano, Enugu on shortwave and midwave transmitter. Now, later on, a bill was sent to the House of Rep in 1956, which established and strengthened the NBC. Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FICN, was established in 1978. The Voice of Nigeria, which is the international wing of it, was created in 1990. With the creation of more state, radios were increased, television are increased, and today some states even have so many television and so on. And go ahead. By 1992, as we remember, as it has not been informed by the earlier speaker, now there was the liberalization of broadcasting. Private went into it, and as we have shown somewhere here, go ahead. As we have shown somewhere here, quickly, Trust Nigerian, they took the advantages of the liberalization by the Babangida regime, and you have a lot of the Clapboard TV, Channel 45, Minaj System TV, DITV, Channel 38, AIT, and so on, so on. They took their advantage, and it was liberalized. Now, In the past, one of the reasons why there was a call and eventually is effected in liberalism was that the federal radio, federal televisions, the state radio and state television are there to just dish out the people who are in control. There is need to reach the larger population. And like you have known, that all of us know, the main objective of program is to reach to the people, to get them education, to mold their character, to tell them about their culture and so on. Education, for example, was very key in all the establishments of radio and television. So with the public-private now serving, because like I said, broadcasting was serving as inward ambition of the politicians who are in power, and it was liberalized. And in order to check these excesses, broadcasting was liberalized. As it was liberalized, private goes into it. Whether the aim and objective of broadcasting, the liberalization of broadcasting then has been realized today, well, we are all practitioners, we are all in it, we have listened to some of the speeches that have been made that have critically reassessed the broadcasting institution. Now, I'm going to look at challenges from two dimensions. The challenges of nation state. I'm going to look at it from critical issues that make Nigeria Nigeria, that without it, Nigeria will be in existence. Now, it's an encompassing matters, issues. Then the section B of the challenges will be to isolate individual challenges. Then we can discuss them as time permits. And like here I've said, number one, we see territorial integrity, which is challenged, the sovereignty, nationalism, equality, globalization, decentralization, self-determination, and regional groupings. Now, one of the greatest challenges to the Nigerian state is territorial integrity. Territorial integrity is conceptualized from the nation-state perspective, which means you have a geographical entity where protection of the people living within it and its boundary became its chief responsibility. You have a territorial integrity, you have a territory that occupies people. Nigeria is a territory that occupies people who have different values, different culture, languages, religions, ethos, different. But then the very fact that it is a territorial that has its north-south, has its border from all angles, it means it's an entity itself. But today we all know that this is being challenged. And one of the greatest challenges that I faced, not only the civilian government, democratic civilian government, but even the military in the past, is how do you maintain the territorial integrity of the Nigeria without incursion either from within or from without? We shall see that soon. Move ahead. Now, sovereignty. Sovereignty, internal and external sovereignty, came to be regarded as the hallmark of nation state. Internally, the state had the right to order the behavior of all its citizens, and externally, sovereignty implied the right of the state to choose any element to protect its national interest. The sovereignty of Nigeria has been compromised at different times by forces operating within and outside the country. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty is the oneness of a nation, indivisibility of a nation. It is sovereign, as different from indivisibility of other nations. For example, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, US, Canada, and so on. Now, as a Nigerian, as a nation state, Nigeria's sovereignty is not available to be abused or to be impeached upon. It means the individuals that are within the sovereign are protected, just like the individuals that are within try to enhance the sovereignty of the nation. But then, like we have said, there are so many individual groups, like we shall discuss in the phase 2 of the challenges, that have questioned what the sovereignty of Nigeria. For example, the various coups, the counter coups that were had in the past. Now, Metesine, Boko Haram, MED, NDA Avenger, Niger Delta Avengers, OPC, Shiite, harassment farmer, kidnapping, banditry, etc. Each of these groups, in the extreme interpretation of their operation, has what? Has challenged the existence of Nigeria, sovereignty of Nigeria. We'll get there. Let's go ahead. Nationalism. You are national because you belong to just one nation. Whatever your ideology, whatever your view, whatever your culture, whatever the language you speak, whatever the race that you can trace your ancestry to, you have a nation, which is Nigeria, and the protector of that nation, which is Nigeria, is nationalism. You are patriotic, you have a lot of feeling for that country, and you have internalized the ethos of that country, which necessarily should be above any other thing. But like we have stated here, we have so many groups that have challenged even the nationality of Nigeria. And the media has helped to strengthen nationalism and has also weakened nationalism, as we shall discover. Now, I'll just I said ethnic nationality versus ethnic group. Often people say ethnic nationality. But we know that in actual sense, there is nothing like ethnic nationality. It's fake, it's a farce. Now, nationalism that you have, whatever ethnic nationality that existed before, has been shrunk. It has been taken over by the invasion of the British from 1860 up to 2004. As the British invaded the Nigerian polity, it has taken over all the nationalities. It has shrunk all nationalities. Now, what you have, whatever they have as an indivisible, independent nationality, has been taken over, has been bequeathed, albeit by force, by the British. And as British leave, the British bequeathed that to the Nigerian state. So often we make the mistake by even bringing people, by even broadcasters. I have heard that several times, even with the federal state broadcaster, saying ethnic nationality, ethnic nation. Because immediately you recognize ethnic as national, then that questions the nationality of the Nigeria itself. And ethnic nationality is nothing but a farce. It does not exist. What you have is ethnic group. And this can be proved. It can be proved from intellectual and academic reality. Ethnics is a continuum. It's a continuum thing. We can take any example, and it continues to evolve. It continues to break. It continues to extend. Even any ethnic group, they change their languages. They also borrow and they leave. And some of them have so much interwoven and intermingled that the so-called purity of ethnicity is no longer there. The DG of this very important, the NBC, for example, if my knowledge of history is still intact, today is now an Ilorin man, and you have so many of them. And if you trace his history, you discover that originally, unquote, he may not have come from there. If you just take, for example, the Sokoto Caliphate, for example, the Fulani went to everywhere, they invaded, they brought Islam through jihad, or through assimilation, education, and you now have even what you now have as the so-called Hausa states are run, in essence, by people who ideologically and civilizationally were Muslim, but have a race that is different, which is the Fulani. What are you going to call the Fulani that are today are latent in Ilorin? What are you going to call them who no longer speak Fufude? Now, or what are you going to say to a Fulani who is now in Nupe land, who no longer speak Fufude but speak what? Nupe. He's in Bida. Maybe he's even from, and so on. And sometimes the paradox during the early 80s, when we were looking for a higher institution to go, I have friends that I don't want to mention their name, they are big people now, who left Ilorin, for example, to look for admission in Sokoto, in Kano, but who originally are actually Fulani. Even from their texture, you see them, they have the blood. But they were denied because why? They are coming from Yoruba land, and vice versa. But then if you also want to trace even the various groups, which will come to another fast, that is being propagated. Nigeria is a geographical expression, which is not true. Because even before the British came, the Nigerian areas, or the people that came to make up Nigeria, were already linked together, either by river, by trade and commerce, by mountains, by missionary activities. They are already in together. For example, you go to Funtua, you go to Mulufachi, there are people who originally are called Yoruba people. Today, what do you call them? They've been assimilated. The Tinubu family is on record where they have extended all their business all over the world. But even if you go to aesthetic, you will discover aesthetic artifacts that are actually origin from somewhere. Let's take, for example, Bini, but that you discover in Igala land, that you discover, for example, in north central Nigeria. What about the North culture, which is a culture that extends within the entire north central, and even it extended beyond even the desert into what we now call some other countries like Cameroon, Niger, Chad. The culture has its root from somewhere, but its expansion is, so it's a continual thing. For you to say there is a pure race is another farce. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as pure race. So even the idea of ethnic nationality, even the intellectual, the historical and developmental involvement of ethnicity or ethnic as a group contradicts ethnic nationality. Even if we are not even speaking, legally speaking. But legally speaking, we know all the ethnic nationality that existed before the British came, the British took over, and the nationality, they have lost it. They are just ethnic group because they identify themselves with a different language, culture, and so on and so forth. So, as we shall see, the Broadcasting Corporation, the broadcasting organization and station must strengthen the Nigerian nationalism rather than ethnic what? Nationalism. It's a problem. And I've mentioned NTA because the NTA is for all of us. But these are common things you see every day in all television and radio. Sometimes they even bring an extreme Chevronist to come and he will be discussing. And he's telling you if his ethnic nationality does not get in, Nigeria will be dissolved. It's all over the place. We can see it, especially like we'll see the politicians, the elites, when they lose, they lose in political campaign, or when they lose being recognized by the state for ministerial or any appointment, they said, okay, we no longer believe in this state, it has to collapse. Then he reclined back to his ethnicity and he said, there is ethnic nationality. We used to have a nationality, but you used to have, that's historical. But now, it doesn't exist. What exists is your ethnic group, not the nationality. Now, like I said, this marks the highest level of lack of nationalism among leaders of various groups in Nigeria, religious and so on and so forth. Go ahead, please. Now, why international law recognize all states as equal sovereign states? We have problem of equality and equity. The bulk of people that are dysfunctional, the bulk of people that are rebellious are recalcitrant, either as group organization or as some dissidents who are fighting the Nigerian state will tell you, because there's no equality. Because though the constitution, there should be equality of everything, the gender, religion, and so on. Every person must access the opportunity, the available resources, and so on. Said, well, I was just listening to, I don't know whether it's AIT or NTA, recently when it was interviewing some people that were kidnapped that were released. There's one particular person, just yesterday it was aired, who was interviewed, was kidnapped. He said, you see, when they were there, they told us, he said, we do not have job. That's what we are doing. Go and tell the government that you should give us job. We do not have, some of us are graduates and so on and so forth. Some of us are professional with artisan. We do not get job to do. The big people have monopolized the resources. So because of that, so this is why we have taken to kidnapping. This is why we are doing what we are doing, which means there is a charge of lack of equity and there is a charge of lack of what? Equality. And it's a big challenge to the Nigerian state. Now, there is also a regional context demand for more state resource control, militancy, kidnapping, banditry, armed robbery, These are empirical evidence of lack of equality and equity, both vertical and horizontal. Now, globalization. Globalization is a very good, especially if you look at globalization from both homogeneity and hegemony. Homogeneity, because the world has become one. Somebody putting on Babariga, you see it in every part of the world today. Somebody putting on suit is all over the place today. Internet, Twitter, WhatsApp. I mean, somebody who is far, thousands of kilometers away, you are chatting with him, you are calling him on phone as if he's just close by. Sometimes it's even more, the sounds are clear, are better than somebody in the same room with you. Why? That is homogeneity. The world has become one. The same dress you see in Paris, in London, in Kuala Lumpur, Hong Kong, is the same thing you see in Arab world. So, I mean, it's homogeneity. But then there is hegemony. The best of all is control. As I'm speaking now, as I speak with the coordinator of NBC, I sent text message, he replied, I sent email, it's been dropped somewhere. The more you do biometrics, the more you are captured by banking and so on and so forth, and is the more you are losing your freedom and you are losing your security. So that's hegemon. If you see Mutalab's son, who was involved in bombing, how was he caught? It's simple. It's go to his email, and they know exactly where the influence was coming on him. From his discussion and so on, I was in university, I want to get married, my dad is not allowing me to get married, he say I must do my master's and so on. The man is in, the boy is in security asking questions and so on. So before you realize, he got himself involved and he's connected, he's collaborated with people that have extreme of religious view, and before you realize, he's being recruited. You know, through email, everything is got in there. So now, that's globalization. But the globalization has its negativity, which means you do not have so-called pure country. It's no longer possible again, because even by your constitution, in a way, you have sealed away part of your what? Part of your power, you have sealed away part of your activities, your role, your duties. A state can just go and take loan from US. Our governors can just go to China, Hong Kong, and say they have gone on what? On investment. Now, and sometimes they only ask the federal to come and sanction it and to ratify it. That's freedom. It can move out. Now you have seen the elements that are Nigerian elements that have just been arrested recently, about 80 of them or so in the United States of America. They are globalized individuals, you know, who can just hack on you and collect everything they have, use the money without even seeing the money online, transfer the money to a car seller who import cars to some of their, and so on and so forth. You can imagine, and they can come back and say, oh, we are great people, and you celebrate them being a multimillionaire, a billionaire at less than 30, and so on. Before you realize, that's the other side of globalization, because it has made criminality, it has made dysfunctionality, it has made insurgency and terrorism and that very borderless. Crime is now borderless. Now, like I said, look at IMN, Islamic Movement of Nigeria. All of us know, wrong or right, that it has linked with Iran. And there's nothing hidden about that. Ibrahim Ezekzegi has spoken to some of the diplomats in Iran, and Iran has requested several times, bring him to us, we will look after him, we will take care of him, and so on. Then look at IPOB. IPOB is Israel. And recently, even Turkey had a point, wanted to blackmail Nigerian government using IPOB, you know, and said you can come, and some of the people that were actually fingered in supplying certain weapons to IPOB are actually people, are Turkish citizens. Whether it's sanctioned by government or not is a different thing. Now, what about even your so-called NGOs, CBOs, donor agency? They are just there. For example, have we interrogated the money that go to big NGOs alone, international donors, and the volume of money, dollars, pounds, that they fish into your country? It means that the globalization have fun. If, for example, any of the international donor or any is wanting to use the CBO, the NGO, it's very easy, and we have seen it. Some NGO in Nigeria owned by Nigerian, shared by Nigeria, are even more American than the Americans themselves. Yeah, the same thing even in the academia. The NGO in academia bring a lot of money from Rockefeller, from MacArthur Foundation, and so on and so forth. They give you, do this research from us. Before you realize the research is being used against your country. For example, an NGO that will bring just, you want to sensitize women, and you are paying people that are involved 300,000 naira every week. I mean, you know, it's not, there's no free lunch. It's not free. You have to pay for it. And so on. They gather information. We shouldn't go deep because it affects almost every aspect of our life. The military, the media, and so on. Some of our own broadcasting media are more American. They are more British. They are more Israel than they themselves. And they even relay more information about some of these countries where they are linked to than even information and culture and so on about Nigeria. Go and check. We have all seen it. So it's no longer as easy that it used to be. Now, decentralization. Nigeria is under attack from rise of demand for greater decentralization. They call it restructuring in the new, right, by its federating unit and even by the mega city under its unit. It is now common for regions, states, cities to deal directly with other nations, like we have said. Nigeria is facing existential threat from within. The regional leaders are asking for the identities of those who signed 1940 amalgamation treaty with Lord Lugard. The lies of Nigeria that it is a mere geographical expression. I have said this is a lie. If the British, the historian know that even if the British has not intervened in our development from 1860 or 1861 when it took over Lagos, Nigeria will have still evolved in one way or the other. You can go on my website, you see some of the research that have been done on that to show that Nigeria was on the verge of coming together. It may have been a different geography from what you have now, but it was evolving. It was evolving. And meanwhile, you can't go back and question 1914 because it's a deal done. You know, if you go and question it, you have to question it constructively and developmentally. Not because you want to use it to dismember Nigeria. It is illegal. Any person who calls for the dismember of Nigeria is doing illegality. And any person who champions his ethnic and he calls himself ethnic is doing illegality because by law, Nigeria is recognized, not individual ethnic nationality. So the thinking that Nigeria is a mere geographical expression is a lie. We have said how Nigerian people are connected, even before the British. Really, really, really connected. Go and read history works. We're already there. Some of the business, some of the traits of what we now have as Southwest and Southeast were already in Kurumi Market. The cloth weaving of the Igbo people in Okene were already in Jakara International Market before 1800. Look at the mixture between Ife and Modakeke. Look at even the Yoruba and the Badagry. It's been on for a very long time. Now, some of people that we have, for example, in the north that have been governors in the past and so on, actually originally are not from that area. What are you going to do to them to send them back? It's madness. Now, so self-determination, most of modern nations state artificial creation, you are using the old version. Now, result of dissolution of the empire, end of colonial, the multi-ethnic nation states are under pressure from the emerging sub-nationalism in their area of jurisdiction. Now, go ahead. This is what we have just explained. Every individual, every group wants to have self-determination because it no longer believes in Nigeria. And the media, like we shall see, should not help them in propagating this. Go ahead. Now, today you have so many regional groupings that are a threat to the existence of the Nigerian system. Their style increased regional demand, agitation, militancy, call for disintegration are often on the right, regional balkanization, irredentism, especially in religion, bigotry. Some people are even called herdsmen. For example, recently some people say, herdsmen, you better leave our place. And the other people are saying, if herdsmen will leave their place, thank you very much. If the herdsmen are leaving their place, then it means other people should also leave. So these are all threats to the nation state. And now you have so many regional groupings like we have mentioned there, the OPC, the APC, the MEN, Mossab, Niger Delta, and so on and so forth. Go ahead. And each of these has a claim to the territory of Nigeria. Each of these, though in diverse variation, are asking for the dissolution of Nigeria because of what? They felt they are not properly taken care of. Regionalism is one serious issue that has affected Nigeria. In the past, it is historical, but it's now over. But often you see people relying and recourse to regionalism. So it's a big problem. Now, right, like I said, when politicians and elites lose out, what happened to them? They call for balkanization. They fought for dissolution. They finance all sorts of groups and some violent agitators. The broadcasting industry is very much aware, and sometimes, and we have seen of recent, they are used as indulgent partners. Now, if you look at individual threats, there are individual organizations that are serious threat to the Nigerian state. Boko Haram, it emerged since 2009. At the peak of that crisis, thousands of people have been left. There is a heavy humanitarian crisis. No doubt, like we have said in our reverse version, which is not the one that is using, the current regime has made a lot of effort to decimate, to reduce the severity. But the very fact that there's this sporadic, ambush here and there, killing, bombing, it shows that the issue is still with us. And sincerely speaking, Boko Haram remains one of the greatest threats to the Nigerian state. Of recent, and like we have said somewhere, even the recent banditry that is going on, especially in North Central and Northwest, are being cleverly, some people are already meaning that it is a Boko Haram metamorphizing in another guy. It's the same thing, herdsmen and farmers, because in the past, they existed together. But what has happened now? Move ahead, please. Go ahead. Go back. You can read this work online that has discussed extensively on Boko Haram. It was a piece on my inaugural lecture some years back. It's online, it can be retrieved. Go ahead. Now, the role of broadcasting as a tool of national integration. The purpose of broadcast originally is provide programs and services that inform, educate, enlighten, and help inform civil discourse, essential ingredient for unity, peace, cohesion, and ultimate stability. Now, integration is the satisfaction of the various components of the social polity with regard to justice, fair play, equitable distribution of resources, and ability to access national opportunity. If you go down, I try to measure, to marry the two, that the broadcasting institution should actually be the organ that is calling forward for national integration and unity. Why? Because ab initio, that is part of their role. Their role as informing, their roles as educating, their roles as molding the character, the behavior, the style, and the thinking is well knitted in the definition and requisition of what? Of an integration. Go ahead. Now, okay, I can see the problem. You are using the old version. It's okay, we'll just go. Now, these are some of the things that I've already discovered about the crisis, about the individual group that are constituting challenges. Just go ahead, the headers. Sorry, come back. Go back. Okay. For example, the farmer herds clashes is a very serious, significant threat. We're all aware. And when we talk of farmer headers as a threat, we are talking of physical security, we are talking of humanitarian issue, and we are talking of food scarcity and food challenge. They are all linked together. Move ahead. Go ahead. Now, the IMN is a recent threat. Many lives has been lost by Islamic movement of Nigeria for their call for the release. We do not have to go into their history. It's there online. You can see it's what has been their history. But of recent, the viciousness and the violence that is accompanied with the IMN has become an outward threat to the existence of the Nigeria. And we all know, especially those of us that live in Abuja, what has happened of recent. Move ahead. When police officers were killed and so on, and in retaliation, the security also hit back. Go ahead. Cameroon, silence challenge. And what I would say, judging from available information, a neighboring country, Cameroon, is on the brink of civil war. The Anglophone, which just about to 2025, some are saying 15 of that country, are asking for independence. And for those that are from south area, you feel it. And like we have said, there is a problem that may arise, and there has been a refugee that is coming inside the country, influxing, that if it is not properly taken care of, then there's going to be a problem. Go ahead. Bad political leadership, especially since 1999. We are all Nigerians who have seen how bad political leadership and how lack of accountability has smeared the various regimes that have taken over. Is a great challenge, because not only at national level, at state and local government, you have this bad leadership that permitting, and they are serious threat to what? To the nation state. That if you have them, there's going to be a problem for the state, because there's nothing as worse as a bad leadership, unaccountable leadership. And we all know, unaccountable, corrupt, with a lot of sleazebag regime that are nepotistics and so on and so forth. Look at it, not from the Nigerian perspective, but from narrow regional, sectional, religious view. They are a great threat. Because all these threats that we have said can actually be minimized and can actually be reduced if you have what? A good political leader, and if you have accountable leaders at all levels of Nigerian political tiers. Go ahead. Urban drift. This is also a very serious phenomenon. Increasingly, our urban is choking up. Why? Because there are no development in the rural areas. This has been, I think we were born into this kind of crisis. But then it has become worse, especially with lack of infrastructure facilities in the rural area. People tend to migrate. And you can see that even when Erifai was the minister here, there was a lot of problem, reducing the number and so on and so forth, as much as he's tried, but it become a very serious mirage. Can you go ahead? Just roll. Let's move to social irresponsibility of the role of broadcasting. Okay, let's look at this. It's part of the thing that I have explained. The workability of integration complementarily are about 5 key areas. 1, the fusion of norms and cultures. Fused together not as one divisive, but in a tolerable way. In a very tolerant way. Because some people are attached to their norms and culture, but then it can live and appreciate other cultures and norms that are just adjacent. Now, the promotion of economic interdependence is part of integration. We have said that even before the current Nigerian state, the regions of the Nigerians of the past were already integrated, were also dependent on themselves by movement of people through missionary, trade, and so many other activities. Part of the thing to see a suave and robust integration is what? Is economic interdependence. Various group and entity depend on themselves. The narrowing down between the allies and the masses, the urban and the rural and the rich, are all segments of integration. Equitable resolution of emergent crisis and conflict. Like we said earlier on, crisis, conflicts can arise. As far as human being is concerned, you cannot do without conflict and crisis. But it all depends. What do you do with the conflict? What do you do with the crisis? Do you use an administration to develop and to move, or you allowed it to degenerate into dismemberment, into squabbles, and so on and so forth? Often than not, we allowed it to create problem among the various communities, among the ethnic groups that are living together, among different religious that are, because lack of intervention and later lack of quickly taking the advantage of the challenge and to develop the country. You are too fast. The sharing of mutual experiences so that people can discover that they have undergone some important experiences together. This is very key. Part of integration is sharing experiences, common experiences. It's sharing history. For example, let's take the herders and farmer. They have lived together for centuries, not just 100 years, but more than 100 years. And they have shared experience. That is why in the beginning, people tried to chip in and said, the herders, the killer herders are actually foreigners. And I've heard tough government functionaries also believing in that they are foreigners. But eventually, a study that is already emerging, a study that has been conducted by researchers, show that the same people that have lived together are now against themselves. You know? Now, but then, our own concern here is that the Broadcasting Corporation, go to the next, thank you. The Broadcasting Corporation must be in the forefront in what? In calling for national unity and national what? Integration. By this means, by promoting unity and cultural pride, promote national pride above primordialities and identity-based cleavages, emphasize commonality in history, for example, river, trade, missionary, cultural marriages, aesthetic, etc. Now, they must look at that the tribe themselves are ephemeral, because people can decide within a span of 50 years. People can actually decide to change their tribe. Yeah, you can decide to change your tribe. It's there. Let's just look at what is happening to the Northeast. The people, let's take Borno State. There has been a lot of demographic movement in Borno State. If you go to Kaduna town, you see Borno Cap, Borno this, Borno that, shops all over the places. People that have run away from the war-torn Borno State when Boko Haram was intense. I can assure you from our study of intergroup relation, at least 50% of people that have moved may never go back to that area again. And large percentage of these are going to take wife from Kaduna State, either of ladies from Kaduna or people that have come to work in Kaduna. Now, what does that result to? It means that, and these people may have children that are going to change their language, that are going to change their culture. And it shows that even the so-called, what we call the tribe, there's a family who have almost more than 350 tribes in Nigeria. And like I said, they are still evolving. Some of them, they may be evolving very slowly compared to in the past, before the pre-British era, but then they are evolving, they are changing. In fact, the various language, international language like English language, is polluting what? The authenticity of our ethnicity and the so-called authenticity of our language. Now, new crises like HIV, diseases, crops, produce that are coming, new area, film that are coming from the West, that are coming from Asia, are calling for new name and new reinterpretation, which is adding to the vocabulary of the people themselves. Invariably, which means there is a mutation, there is an evolvement, there is a change from one stage to another, and no one can take it down. And like I said, the same thing with clan section, except of political. Some like tribe and language are still even evolving. Languages are evolving. Good intention of the common protection of national value like anti-corruption, discipline, respect for elder, constrained authority, evil effect of war, and so on. These are the area that broadcasting association, broadcasting station, broadcasting media should be emphasized. The emphasis of culture, commonality, of our pride, and so on and so on, of those things that bind us together, rather than emphasizing on all those things that divide us in a negative formation. The same tribe, which could be a source of what? Of greatness, can also be the source of challenge, can also be the source of what? Of dismemberment. It all depends how to use it. And how do we use it is going to be depend on those people who transmit, either in the radio or television. Because why? The bulk of citizens, not only in Nigeria, all over the world, are hooked to what? To their radios and what? And we all know how these messages influence a lot of us in so many different ways. So the broadcast media, therefore, the practitioners must be conscious of the fact that the role they play in the society is extremely very sensitive. That certain speeches that they make or certain people they bring to discourse can create crisis, can create war, can create death. But then it is their choice. If they are conscious and they are sensitive of this, they are very mindful of what the kind of people they bring and the kind of messages they also pass through the waves. Go ahead. In the same way, we are saying broadcasting corporation must desist from this. One of them is emphasizing conflict points and negative divergent traits. Sometimes one of the leaders of a rebellious group, let me call it, that is well known, whose activities had led to death, whose activities, especially of recent, has become so dysfunctional to the growth of the nation, was covered so fully. Some people right from the plane when he touched the ground, up to the time that he was taken to where he was supposed to be taken. A media outfit was even covering it live. And come and listen to the journalist, the man that was interpreting the episode. You know clearly that this episode are being interpreted to set that movement against what? Against the state. Such a thing is very dysfunctional and it has very serious, terrible, insidious impact on the polity. Now, interpreting events to cause disaffection, acrimony, inflame tempers, arise disunity, especially among communities that have lived together for centuries. They must also desist from promoting alienation, marginalization, and polarization, and propagating religious irredentism and extremism and negative dysfunctionalism. It's not only in our religious mosques and churches that the malam and the pastors interpret, because if it is there alone, the audience are limited. Is that not so? But immediately the broadcasting station, either a radio or a television, gives such a wide publicity, then it's a problem. Muhammadu Buhari is going to die before the election. Tell him that my God has told me that he should not contest for the second tenure. Because why? If he does, he's going to die. And media carried it and it's all over the places. Or I was reading in one of the media, one person they brought interview and he was not sanctioned. He said, the governor of Kogi State, Yahya Bello, has the largest number of concubines, the largest number of wives, the largest number of this, the largest number of cars, the largest number of houses being broadcasted in a TV. I mean, it's terrible. No verification, no disagreement, no research. The person has not been asked, what research have you used and what are the methodologies that you have used in discovering this? Even clearly, it's obvious that it cannot be true. But then it is aired. And I see people even say, I listened to this station, this is what they have said. And people will be calling, is that Yahya Bello is the most, he has the largest number of concubines and so on and so forth. How can, for example, a broadcasting media will propagate this kind of thing? Why? Because it's going to inflate flames and so on and so forth. I also know during the last campaign, a particular station brought an anti-government campaigner. This, I listened to it. And the campaigner is also a politician who is vying for the same post with some other people. Yeah. What happened? It says, it brought in a jingle that said, they are killing people, they are kidnapping people, and so on and so forth, in a particular geographical area, which is completely a lie. But I thank the manager. The manager resisted, but he was sacked. He or she was sacked for not succumbing to that, and so on and so forth. Then the man, okay, since the sack will be cut, let's also go and set up our own. Then you have to, and the conflict continue, and the interest of the nation. Sorry, I have a limited time, so I will just run through it. Let's go ahead. Now, what I'll do, what are the role of a constructive broadcast? Constructive broadcast means a broadcast that is suave, is proactive, is productive. That a constructive is that even if it involves in criticism, which is part of the green grade of broadcasting, it has to be understood. You know, anti-people policy, but not calling for rebellion, not calling for a revolution that you do not know where it's going to stop. Now, I'll just get this summary, then the huge interpretation are there. Number one, ensuring that the content of all broadcasts and podcasts are produced and disseminated in compliance with all extant media laws and code of ethics, as well as international best practices in mass communication. Professionalism, with its emphasis on objectivity, will curtail divisive broadcast. This is key. Secondly, articulating cutting-edge context and program to change the thought system and value of Nigerians and modify their arrogant, erratic, ignorant, impulsive, irresistible relation with one another. This is very common. Not doing this is what is common all over the places. Somebody, he is a retired person from the civil service, from the army, a retired politician who think he needs to be recognized and he's not recognized. The first thing he do is to gather his clan and kid together. And before you realize, they are challenging the authority of the government and the nation state of Nigeria. Broadcasting must try as much as possible to lead to strengthening law against and strictly sanctioning violation of hate speech, sedition, incitement, blasphemy, framing, labeling, slander, etc. Legal penalty will strengthen the social, structural, and institutional environment to discourage disunity. This is very, very, very important. And this is why the NBC comes in. Sanctioning and without any political consideration. They must be able to close down a station. They must be able to suspend a station. For what? For involved in those things that are what? That antithesis to the existence of corporate Nigeria. If they don't do it, there's going to be a problem. Empowering broadcasting services workers with adequate accommodation, equipment, remuneration, training, retraining. Broadcasters bereft of these basic needs often become prey to conflict entrepreneur, unpatriotic politician, and tribal and religious jingoists. You need to take care of your staff. If you know you are not going to take care of your staff, don't establish one. Because the politicians and the elites who believe that their interests must pervade will hijack them. And they are going to use that medium to disseminate hate, which will, in the long run, in the short and the long run, is going to help in the dysfunctionality and the negative development of the nation. This is very, very important. Often, like we also said sometimes, you establish a university that you can't pay the staff salary. Why do you establish it? You establish a radio station that cannot pay, that gives you the license. Your ID card is licensed to go anywhere, to eat. This is serious. Then it means because the man wants to eat, he has to survive, because he lives in this society, he's prone to what? To hijack. He's prone to what? To mercenaries, using broadcast, using media. So I think NBC, as time goes on, will help to close down all this media. Let's be very frank with you. I have traveled so much for academic reasons. It is Nigeria, you see, people can say anything, and you get away with it. It's very, very serious. And if we do not, to me, I'm sorry to say, there's too much freedom in Nigeria. Forget about the West. They will tell you are doing well, no problem. They know you are not doing well. They will encourage you because your weakness is their strength. So they will always encourage you. They will bring in money for mercenaries and so on and so forth. They are ready to partner with you so that you can be used against your nation. And it often, like I said, when the people involved are not properly taken care of. No, go back. Sorry. Now, constricting other mass mobilization agencies and departments such as Federal Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, NTA and NOAA, and so on and so forth. In the National Unification Project, Earlier speakers spoke about collaboration. Collaboration is the key word. No person can do it. And one way of collaboration is for the NBC to sign an MOU with all broadcasting corporation on the ethics of the world, of the profession. And they must properly utilize all the people. I'm from academia. Yes, I have my background. For example, I started my career in 1987 as a journalist, and I rose to the level of an acting editor before I joined the academia. As a professor in University of Utara, Malaysia, for example, my optional professorial discipline is communication and media. But then, beyond this, the media, like the NBC is doing, should always bring people from order to tell them what they see in themselves. Just like people, politicians, elites, and so on will talk to the academia. You people are selling handouts. You people are writing theses for people. You people are awarding marks that people did not get. You people are failing girls that you don't have access to sexually, and so on and so forth. Other people can help you and tell you what he sees in your own profession. Beyond that, collaboration in order to also enhance the development of broadcasting. So that's why all these linkages, all these people, Ministry of Education, Ministry of National Orientation Agency, particularly, is very key. This is one organ that we have not been taking serious in this country. Everywhere you go, all over the world, especially developing economy, orientation agencies are powered. They are strengthened to be able to dish out those things that will unite the people rather than disuniting. You often had Satu Malaysia, one Malaysia. This, everywhere you go, you hear all this. You will see an American, he does not like to go to anywhere. He's patriotic. Whatever the conflict is in America, he tells you America is number one. And we're going to stay here. They all protect their country. But a typical Nigerian says, this country is useless. This country and so on. The first thing you meet in Nigeria is to insult his own country. We know there are so many factors that have led to this, but then we need to develop our what? Our patriotism responsibility. And in doing so, through broadcasting, the NBC alone cannot do it. I'm really very happy with words of wishes that have been said by various organizations, and it has really commended and it has strengthened the NBC to be able to monitor, to be able to also sanction erring people. The key thing is sanction. Not everything is politicized, because there are certain politicization that is at the root of dismemberment and is at the root of what? Of death and commotion. Now, leading by example by those in the politics and the mass media is the only way to make the campaign credible, check public cynicism, reinforce the messages of national unity among the people. We must live it. We must leave Nigeria, particularly the media practitioners. They must be seen. If owner of media, especially broadcasting media, does not believe in Nigeria and everywhere that is involved in any engagement, either elitist or political engagement, it means what? It means his own media is going to tell the same lie. And people will quote him. This is the owner of this television. This is the owner of this radio. You bring it. The first thing is to hammer on the country, insult its leaders and all its section. Then there's going to be a problem. So, media practitioners, media owners, media managers must live the ethics of the media so that other people working in the media and out should be able to emulate them. And it means they also have to live responsibly, because if they do not live responsibly, the media will interpret to the whole world through its own media the irresponsibility that is known, that is knitted in the personality that owns the media. This is very, very important. Now, we have to remember that some of the crises that we have had, the Tutsi, the Hutu, the Eritrean, Saddam Hussein, they are all born out of media. Sometimes you are careful of this because you know the consequence of not being responsible. Part of the consequence of not being responsible is Tutsi Hutu in Rwanda. It is so-called weapon of mass destruction of the United States of America in Iraq and so on. Who propagated that? It's the media. And so on and so forth. Now, like I said, all these things, they turn out to be a hoax. It's not correct. Let's move on. I'm stopping right away. Now, this is the section 2. I'm going to leave it because it's there, like I said, people can access it. Just go to the end. I want to sincerely thank all of us for listening, and I thank the CEO of NBC for inviting me, and I'm really glad to be here to share some of my thoughts, and I hope that you find it useful. Thank you very much.
The man without the microphone, you can see, is a born teacher. Let's put our hands together one more time for Professor. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very quickly, the rest of the panel will join him, and then we'll commence the discussion. Let me welcome the chairman and moderator of the panel, the former secretary to the commission, Mr. Mark Oje, Major General Adeyinka Famadewa, Principal General Staff Officer, Office of the National Security Advisor, we welcome you. And Chief Executive Officer of the only woman FM station in Nigeria, WFM 91.7 Ibadan, Tomo Kiwale Shunaya. And then the former DG Press Council, Mr. Bayo Atoyebi, to also join us right here.
We don't even realize that somebody's on stage. We just distract him.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Could I have your attention, please? Could we be seated, please, so that we can do this in 45 minutes? I would have loved to start with the protocols, but all that has been done by all the speakers, and so let's not waste time. But it will be very rude of me not to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Tom Adaba, who 27 years ago started all this process. To tell us
of how we in online media operate when it comes to check and balance. The thing that happened to some extent is sensitive, to some extent is classified. But why? Some of us here, if I tell you that thing, you will say, oh, this is the breaking news, let us use it. But do we do that? Around 8 p.m., someone sent very, very sensitive information to me. The information want to be published in PR Nigeria. And the tradition of PR Nigeria, every information in PR Nigeria has byline. If they send us the speech of President Muhammad Buhari, you'll see President Buhari's name in the byline. Any press secretary that signed the press release is named in the byline. Now they now send the material for us to publish it. But the person that sent it is not the source. The name of the person happened to be a traditional title holder in Northeast. I'm sorry I won't mention the name now. Now, when I got the information, I go through it, it was talking about sensitive issue, about some town that were invaded recently by the terrorists. It was even mentioned some town that were not known to everybody. I said, what? I have idea. Even provide picture. Now, when you get information like that, it was sincere. I can see, but the question is, What do you do as broadcaster, as an editor? You got information, send it to you like that. One, by tradition, a tradition title holder like government, they won't indict the government that is operating. Am I right? But it's breaking news that somebody that represents the institution is leaking that information. But mark you, it's not leaking. It is official letter. He sent to the president through the Office of National Security Advisor. So now, when he sent it, we have to now do what is essential for all of us. For every information we get, we have to do the check. What I want to say here is that for all the editors, we know that, the journalists, we know that there are 4 processes when it comes to publication. The first one is for every information you get, you subject it to the first thing, verification. Every information. After the verification process, you now get the authorization. That is verification for authentication, then you now get authorization. And the authorization here is editor will have to authorize it, and sometimes not editor into authorization. It's about the rules, the code, about whether it's responsible, it may be true, but should we publish it? Now, in this case, what we did is we now use 4 stages. When you get information like this, there's 4 verification stages you can use on social media. Every information you can get, you can confirm whether it's true or not. 1, you verify the source. Who is the source? For me, what I did, by trying to use, there was called Spokeo, S-P-O-K-E-O, to set a person to identify whether it's on social media. And then I realized that it was not in Twitter. It opened in Twitter 2011, but it only has 3 members. But in Facebook, it has 500. But we have to now assess antecedent. Is somebody that is credible? Is a philanthropist? And so on and so forth. So I now determine that it's a credible person. The next one is to verify the location. He was talking about this thing. We have to use geotypes. That's a tool you use to determine whether that locality, it was confirmed. The third one is this timestamp about the time and things like that. The fourth one is the content. You have to verify the content. And to verify the content, there are also social media platforms that you can use to confirm some of this data. And the last one is if it's image or video, you use reverse image to verify it. We use this process, we confirm that everything's in order. But the question is it worthy of publication? And national security and national interest. But mind you, even in national security, there's a pre-warning for warning. Sometimes on information, when you see journalists publishing it, they are trying to warn people, be careful, they will come if the soldier will not do. So in essence, this is the process that we can consider whenever we get any information before we use them. In nutshell, social media has come to stay. In fact, I want people to talk about broadcasting, print. I say, is there anything like broadcasting and print again when everybody's already on Facebook and Twitter? So that's all I can say about the social media. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And maybe my earlier question is now obsolete concerning regulation of the social media. We're going to go to the next step, and that is we're going to take questions from members of the public. My resource person has left. So we'll pass the microphone around. We'll pass the microphone around. Short question, please. Let's have your name. Let's have your name. A short question. Who you're asking the question to. And we'll get a response. Yes, please. Who has a microphone? I decide who. Yes, yes.
Well, I think actually my question is to the late speaker, but before then, let me convey fraternal greetings of Nigeria Labour Congress, of which I'm a NEC member, to the leadership of the National Broadcasting Commission on the occasion of the 27th anniversary, as well as the 5th edition of this annual lecture. I've been quite privileged to be here twice. In a special way, I would like to recognize the DG, Alhaji Isaac Modibo, for the wonderful job that he's doing. And in particular, I'm so excited that he's keeping the institutional memory alive. I think somebody once said, it was Obama who said that Africans should build institutions rather than building strong leaders. I think if we check our record, we have been building institutions. And I think National Broadcasting Commission is one institution that's come of age, 27 years. It's highly commendable. I'm also impressed that the DG has connected back to his predecessors. And when I listen to all those veterans being recognized, I guess they can form a union affiliated to Nigeria Labour Congress. For the DG, maybe we don't know him much. Larry used to be a comrade. He has to find out whether he's still one. Even the quality of his scalp shows that he doesn't live on minimum wage now. But one thing you must grant him is the commitment and the tenacity. And I'm so excited the kind of energy he has brought to the commission, including this platform. Now, my comments or questions, I hope when the lead speaker comes. I listened to the lead speaker very well on the issue of sanctions, and I'm all for that. Where we have non-compliance of some of the broadcasters, I think the commission should be very vehement to impose sanctions. But I also recommend that we should also reward compliance. You know, I think if there are best practices, we should really recognize them. NTA did a very good, wonderful program at the height of this IMN crisis. I was highly impressed. About 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew so much about this social movement. But after listening to NTA, it was quite remarkable because NTA brought alternative views. And they brought some members of Shite who actually disowned the IMN, you know, to show that this is not Shite, it's purely a political Islamic movement. You know, and that was the first time to see the alternative view because the main media had promoted Shite, the IMN as if they are Shite, you know, when they don't even call themselves so. And some people pick it up that they have been denied the right to pray, to worship, even though I ask myself, where are the Shite mosques? I don't know of any Shite or Sunni mosque. Mosque. So it's good that NTA brought that perspective, and that completely demystified the IMN for what it is. You know, that it's not a religious thing, it's purely a political agenda that must go through the logic of the rule of law. So what I'm saying here is that as we are talking of sanctions, we should talk of reward for compliance. Then for the media as a whole, I think the lead speaker talks about inequalities, even though, you know, he didn't expatiate on that. There's also inequality of reportage. See, let me give you a typical example. The chairman of Universal Basic Education was kidnapped between Abuja and Kaduna. Now, what hit the headline is the chairman. And actually, his driver was killed. Even though allegedly they pay ransom to free the chairman, but the chairman was killed. But if you ask me today, I don't know the name of the chairman. The name of the driver. It's just a statistic. It's just a name. And this is the way the media reports. The son of a minister had been kidnapped, the son of a political leader. But for the others, they are just statistics, not reported. And even where we talk of human beings, in the Northeast, the National Union of Teachers reported that close to 600 teachers have been killed in the Northeast insurgency. Now, again, this is just statistics. You know, we don't know what it means for a country that is facing challenge of illiteracy to lose that number of teachers. It's extremely very worrisome. So what I'm saying here is that I share all the perspectives that have been shared here, that we need more grounding education for our media practitioners to know what is at stake. Now, the last one I want to leave food for thought here is that, and I think this is where I think the commission has to do more work for capacity building for media operators. Now, let me take the example of UK, since you talk about that, and I'm quite impressed, Tone, very good point to raise. Throughout the war in Northern Ireland, you can't carry the voice of Gary Adams on BBC. You cannot even see his face on the national television until he renounced violence. Now you have organizations that have declared war on the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who do not believe in the Constitution of Nigeria. I mean, ask the IMN, they don't believe in the Constitution of Nigeria. Now you have a leading human rights lawyer defending them for people who do not even believe in that Constitution. Now, for the media, can you be allowed to give platform for people who do not believe in the open platform, who do not subscribe to the Constitution? You know, for me, it's something we need to reflect over. People declare war on constitutional order, yet they want to benefit from it. I mean, it doesn't add up. You know, and at times we also promote it from the reverse. I mean, I've been looking for very good developmental news from Japan. Our president has been there, that wonderful summit, African Development Summit. Now, I heard Femi Adesina, you know, making reaction to what shouldn't be reacted to. I mean, what we shouldn't have to react to. That IPOP did not come to, I mean, first IPOP, we know the status of IPOP. Then secondly, event in Japan, it's not about that. So, invariably, we give legitimacy to what is not supposed to be legitimate. You know, so I think we need to be clear what do we really need. And that, on the last note, I also want to raise. The lead speaker, you are here now. Wonderful lecture. Please, another round of applause for him. And I want to pick a copy. Highly impressed. You made it quite practical. But you agonize so much that we should see ourselves as citizens, as Nigerians. You promoted, you know, nationalism, which I supported you. But you also define us individually as ethnic groups, about 350. I thought you said so about integration. Today, if there are only two groups in Nigeria, back to the inequality, is between the group of the rich and the poor. No, I'm serious. This is it. I mean, this Oxfam says so, that the wealth of 5 Nigerians, 29.9 billion naira, could take care of the extreme poverty of 112 million Nigerians. In fact, according to the statistics, the richest man can live on $1 million per day for the next 42 years. Of course, don't talk of those who live on minimum wage. For me, if we want to define Nigerians, I think it's not in terms of ethnicity. It's about those categories that can foster development. And even on the last note, Constitution never defined us in terms of tribe. It talks of citizens of Nigeria. It doesn't even say you are Christian, Muslim. It says citizens of Nigeria. So I want to say media practitioners should subscribe to the way we are defined, and I support your position that we are Nigerians. Not only that, media cannot just be a threat to Nigeria, even to the entire globe, to the entire world. Our world is not small. You know, what we report can determine whether we are going to survive as a planet. So, but let's define us as human beings, as Nigerians in place of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll take a question. And while that is going on, members of the panel here, you have 1 minute each to round up so that we leave.
All right.
Yes, please. Your name, your organization, and the question.
My name is Adeni Ikunu, Director, News and Programs, Roots TV, Nigeria. I listened very carefully to what the keynote speaker said, especially when he went through the historical angles of our ethnicities. And I quite appreciate his bravery in being able to say some things that I've not heard from many persons within his circles in this country. So I say thank you first for being brave enough to talk about it. But my worry, especially as regards reportage, is how the political class intend that the pool of media reports certain incidences that on face value those things are blue, but it's expected you perhaps call it purple. Now let us look at certain international conventions that Nigeria is a signatory to, and I want to just pick one that has to do with the right to self-determination. Croatia is a bit above 4 million as a nation. Croatia sits where Nigeria sits at the UN headquarters in New York. I'm saying here that the feedback mechanisms, particularly with all these agitations that many of us have gone up to see, appears to be something that perhaps we need to do a proper delineation of, understand it very well, before we actually put out things that has to do with maybe laws to really completely say those things are not. Because even in countries that have issues with terrorism and the rest of it all, while on the one hand, they are making laws to prevent its continual surge, on the other hand, they are subjecting it to critical analysis so that they can understand the reasons why we have pockets of groups that continue to disturb the sanity of a nation. What I want to say is, if we check the rulings of courts over certain issues in the country, and we look at the position of the government in terms of how government responds to court verdicts, in terms of how government respects court's position, I think it puts the media at odds when it comes to saying it as it is, on the one hand, and on the other hand, ensure that the interest of government is protected so that we can keep the sanity of the nation. So I'd appreciate really that if we could interrogate this, and I'm very happy that the DG himself is here, of the NBC, what position does the media occupy when, if we look at certain things, this is what it is, and if we report it as it is, it could be considered as a violation of certain guidelines, even when you don't criticize, but you actually put the issues forward for people to say, this was what happened. So I'd appreciate that when we talk about, ensuring the sanity of our country, let us also look at how government should not play into the hands of schemers that leverage maybe disobedience to court orders, that leverage government's overbearing attitude, that leverage government disobedience to what government. So these are the issues that I feel if you are able to talk to, interrogate, it could make the job of the media easy, and we will not be seen as actually contradicting, adhering to what the regulatory authority expects of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, it is the 5th annual lecture of the NBC with the theme, Contemporary Challenges of the Nigerian State, Need for Constructive Broadcasting. For effective regulation and monitoring of the broadcast airwaves, the NBC has a catchphrase, your right to quality broadcasting. It is worthy of note to tell you that recently the NBC launched the 6th edition of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code, where some major changes were made for proper regulation of the broadcast operation in Nigeria, aimed at strengthening the local content provision to empower the nation's creative youths and develop Nigerian sports industry. It's nice that you've been part of this wonderful program. And on behalf of the entire outside broadcasting crew, we say thank you for joining us. I am Adebola Brookslyn Sunday.
Firms, Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
The date palm resembles the coconut and oil palm trees that grow in the forest regions of Nigeria in their structure and leaves. The date palm only grows in arid and semi-arid regions and produces a different kind of fruit. The date palm tree does very well in Dutse, the Jigawa state capital, and its environs. It is an observed fact that traditional varieties of the date palm take years to mature from infancy when they begin to bear fruits. Popularly known as Dabino in Hausa land, fruits of the date palm come in various colors and sizes. The flesh of the fruit is usually eaten raw when ripe or left to dry out in the sun as a form of preservation. This fruit, when dissected, has a long, hard, oily seed that runs through its length. Date palm fruits are very sweet and are eaten as snacks in the arid and semi-arid parts of Nigeria. Dates have a religious function among Muslims, particularly during the fasting month of Ramadan. This fruit is preferred over any other thing while breaking the fast and is usually eaten in odd numbers in compliance with the tradition of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. These days, the date palm fruit is assuming a social function among the houses during wedding fatihas and naming ceremonies, where it is supplanting the kola nut. Perhaps that may explain why you see heaps of the fruit on sale on the streets and in marketplaces in major towns and villages in the northern part of this country.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
Dab. Yes. One day as I did dab, they go. Now I see my neighbor on top electric pole. Don't be how my hold so. Before. So? Climb every day. Come on, electric bill. You not gree pay. Waiting concern you for.
Hello and welcome to the news on the hour. This time on NT International, I'm Elizabeth Omori. The federal government has assured Nigerians that the country is not under any kind of threats to lose any of its assets as it has been interpreted by the media. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed made this clarification at a media briefing in Abuja, accompanied by his counterpart from Justice Abubakar Malami and that of Finance, Budget and Planning, Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, along the Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele. The minister narrated the history of a contract between the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and affirmed firm process in industrial development, which has led to a UK court authorizing the seizure of a $9.6 billion assets belonging to Nigeria. The minister explained that in 2010, a 20-year gas supply processing agreement was entered into with PNID, which the company never performed as agreed. The minister explained that the contract, having suffered a setback, went to the arbitration court, where Nigeria was said to have breached the contract. For now, the federal government has initiated a criminal investigation into the matter to ascertain the sincerity behind the initiation of the contract in the first place, as the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources is not in the right position to go into such contractual agreements. Now, the National Broadcasting Commission has held its 5th annual lecture in Abuja, which is aimed at encouraging broadcasters to be more responsible and responsive to the trends and development in the industry. The lecture also focused, among other things, the audience need to collectively make concerted efforts towards ensuring peaceful coexistence among the divergent interest groups in Nigeria, using the instrumentality of the broadcast media. And out to security, the effectiveness with which a fighting force manages its information could determine how well its personnel fight, how the adversary responds, as well as how the populace on both sides reacts to the circumstances. In view of this, the Nigerian Air Force is updating its information management strategies in line with global standards to cope with the dynamic media climate. This came up at a strategic perception workshop organized for NAF information officers from various NAF commands across Nigeria. The Chief of the Air Staff, in a message to the trainees, reiterated his commitment to repositioning the NAF communication plan to reflect its perception as a responsible organization committed to defending the territorial integrity of Nigeria. And out to other matters, Nigerian citizens will be required to pay a visa issuance fee or reciprocity fee for all approved applications for non-immigrant visas in B, F, H-1B, I, L, and R visa classifications, effective worldwide on 29th of August 2019. The reciprocity fee will be charged in addition to the non-immigrant visa application fee, also known as the MRV fee, which all applicants pay at the time of application. A statement from the U.S. Embassy said Nigerian citizens whose applications for a non-immigrant visa are denied will not be charged the new reciprocity fee. Both reciprocity and MRV fees are non-refundable, and the amounts vary based on visa classification. U.S. law requires U.S. visa fees and validity periods to be based on the treatment afforded to U.S. citizens by foreign governments insofar as possible. Visa issuance fees are implemented under the principle of reciprocity when a foreign government imposes additional visa fees on U.S. citizens. The United States will impose reciprocal fees on citizens of that country for similar types of visas. Nationals of a number of countries worldwide are currently required to pay this type of fee after the non-immigrant visa application is approved. And those are the stories making the hour this time. Thanks for watching.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Aristotle describes man as a political animal, existing amongst others and living in a society governed by laws and customs. Man develops his potentials and realizes his natural habitat in a social context. This, Aristotle posits, is the good life. However, it is not an easy life, but a life of virtue reflected in the highest good. With these words, I welcome you to Political Update, NTA's eclectic political ensemble, which offers you a unique view, news, reviews, previews, and interviews on Africa's largest democracy. I am Fisayo Ogunfuyi. Welcome. Today we beam our lights on the search for the flag bearer as the APC in Kogi and Bayelsa states gear up for gubernatorial primaries later this week after concluding the screening of candidates. Also, we will examine the marching orders, optimism and expectations as ministers mount the saddle. Plus, what are the Milods saying? The latest from the Presidential Election Petition Court and other election petition tribunals across the country. Now, it is just a matter of days to the APC gubernatorial primaries in Kogi and Bayelsa states. Last week, the party concluded a screening of aspirants by committees led by Senator Hope Uzodinma in Lokoja and Honorable Issa Son in Yenagoa. Let's have a look at the process.
Two of the screened aspirants, Governor Yahaya Bello and Hajia Hadiza Ibrahim, are from Kogi Central, while Babatunde Irukera and Bashir Gegu are from Kogi West. 9 other aspirants are from the East Senatorial District of the state. Addressing the aspirants shortly before the commencement of the exercise, Chairman of the APC 7-man screening committee, Senator Hope Uzodinma, explained that the assignment is in line with the constitution of the party, geared towards ensuring that things are done correctly to avoid a reoccurrence of the Taraba episode, where the APC governorship candidate was disqualified by the Supreme Court. While charging the aspirants to remain calm and peaceful, Senator Uzodinma enjoined them to imbibe the spirit of sportsmanship that will allow them work for the would-be party flag bearer to sustain APC in power in the state.
From our records, we have 16 aspirants, out of which one person must emerge. The important thing here now that has confronted us is the challenge of making sure that when one person emerges, other 15 aspirants must rally around him for us to win this election.